topic for today is Copilot. And Peter, yeah, if you want to talk about ROIs the companies are seeing, absolutely, we'll talk about that for sure. And put it in chat. I was thrown for a loop today. My internet at my home just stopped working, and it's crazy. And so I had to like pick up my computer and monitor and actually move over to my mom's condo. So I'm in an element that I'm not generally used to. So if I do seem a little bit frazzled, you know why. And hopefully that's why my setup here, I'm hoping that it's working well, and we can get this going. John, definitely I'll address how Copilot will impact our day-to-day usage. In fact, I have some great use cases and some videos to showcase, which I think you will see from a productivity perspective, how they would affect. So why don't I get started, Peter? I'll address your ROI questions as well. I think throughout the slides there should be some definitely some answers to your questions right there. So let's get started. So let me just get my things set up here. Perfect. Okay. So in terms of Copilot, really, let's start with some housekeeping items, right? This session is being recorded. It's in listen only mode. We ask questions via chat. I'll try my best to answer them. And also, I'm using Teams webinar for the first time, so fingers crossed it works out really well. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Amol Joshi. I see a lot of familiar faces. I see some new ones as well. My name's Amol Joshi. I've been in security for over 18 years, and been executing complex IT and security transformations throughout my career. What I firmly believe in is that security should be achieved through simple standardization. I prefer native and easy to use technologies, and that's why at Crucial Logics we basically hung our hat on Microsoft, because it gives us that flexibility and it gives us that ability to secure organizations using just Microsoft technologies. And if you go on our website, that's exactly what we talk about. We secure your organization using Microsoft technologies, and that's been our bread and butter for the last 7 years. So in terms of our services, um, these are the services that we work with within the Microsoft, from tenant hardening to now Azure AI and Microsoft Copilot, and administering security around it and everything in between. So starting from your Office 365 all the way to the tenant of Azure and OpenAI. Today's an exciting day for Crucial Logics, actually, and I just added the slide. It was just announced this morning that Crucial Logics was named as one of the top growing companies in Canada. There were about 416 that were selected by Globe and Mail, and we were one of them. And it's for us here at Crucial Logics, this is a big monumental moment, and a big sense of pride right now. Like everyone's beaming here because of our achievement. I mean, we are just 6 years old. We've gone through some major transformations over the last couple of years as well, and to achieve this for this year has been very, very humbling. Okay, so now let's get started about the topic at hand. The topic at hand is Copilot, and the world is actually changing, and we are at a very unique, I would say, moment in this large part of digitization of business. The entire industries are transforming. The macroeconomic environment is completely shifting. We are at this inflection point, and I'll tell you why we are at this inflection point. And the reason why we are at this inflection point is because we, the generative AI technology has actually taken over this industry. And just to give you some context, when mobile phones first came out, it took mobile phones 16 years to achieve 100 million users. When internet came out, it took internet 7 years to achieve 100 million users. Facebook did it in 4.5, and ChatGPT did it in 3. So this steady curve that we used to see from a technical growth perspective is no longer a curve, and it's a straight line. And I think it's just gonna get crazier and crazier. And when ChatGPT came out 3 months 100 million users was just mind-boggling, and it continues to grow. And the reason why it continues to grow is basically people are adopting AI, right? One of the predominant narratives around AI is the notion that employees are fearful that it, maybe ultimately put their jobs at risk. And while 49% of respondents in Microsoft survey had some concerns about their job security, a staggering 70% would still choose some form of AI to lessen their workload, right? So really, employees know what's in it for them, and the promise of relief is definitely outweighing the threat of not having an employment. And I think people are coming up with creative ways to be better at their job, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here. So um, when there was a survey that was done by Microsoft, people actually chose Copilot over free lunch. Staggering 80% of the users chose Copilot, and 30% of the people actually said that it would actually influence the choice of an employer, which is interesting. And at Crucial Logics, we use Copilot pretty much every day. Our PMs are using them to take notes now. Our principals are using them to edit documents and things like that as well. So we see the usefulness of Copilot and just overall generative AI, and we are transforming things by trying to figure out different ways. Maybe or making writing SOWs a little bit easier using AI. We're trying to develop these different engines to figure out how can we make our day-to-day lives easier that used to be either tedious and repetitive into a more streamlined fashion. I'll give you some anecdotes while we go through this as well. Okay, so where am I getting all this data? So there is something called Microsoft Work Trend Index. Microsoft Work Trend Index, what it does is it actually uses Microsoft's Graph API. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft has this Graph API that actually tracks productivity on your Office 365 tenant, and being probably the most penetrated productivity solution in the world, between G Suite and maybe Amazon and Microsoft. Microsoft has this tremendous data that they can tap into, and this data provides us some great insights. And what they also do is they actually correlate that with the labor market trends from LinkedIn, because they own LinkedIn as well. And they come up with the statistics, and the statistics are pretty interesting. Um, Based on the research, 64% of the employees don't have enough time or energy to do their jobs. Um, and the primary cause of the time and energy drain is things like searching information, navigating through, inefficient meetings. Employees also reported that spending nearly 60% of their time on communicating and coordinating, and leaving about 40% for creation and deep thinking. So really, majority of their time is being spent on things that are not super productive to the organization. And then the volume of data and the chats and emails and the ability to process it all, is what we call digital debt. And every minute that's spent on this digital debt is basically minute that's spent on not creative work and not really productive work that would benefit the organization. And nearly two-thirds of the people said that they don't really have enough time to do their job, and those employees are probably three times more likely to struggle with innovation and strategic thinking. So really, what all of us have to think as leaders is, how do we feel about this digital debt in our organization? And then 87% of the leaders believe that AI will give their organization a competitive edge. So the question to every leader is asking themselves right now, how will they seize this opportunity and full potential of AI while safeguarding the business and data and your employees, from third-party AI proliferation, right? How would you do this so that your data doesn't fall in wrong hands? I mean, I'm not sure if you heard, but when ChatGPT first came out, within a few months, there was this whole news about Samsung's proprietary code ChatGPT, because what people were doing was, what they found out was ChatGPT actually QAs the code really well. So they would copy and paste the code into ChatGPT, and then that code started showing up on someone else's searches, and that's what the number one issue that we are trying to deal with in terms of our clients' data security at this point. And while going through this, we'll talk about how do you safeguard your data and how do you introduce safe AI into your environment, and why bringing in Copilot is probably a better option because it uses your current Microsoft security policies that you should already have, and ensures that your data doesn't fall in wrong hand. I'm just gonna quickly look at my chat here to make sure that there aren't any chat questions or anything like that, because I'm unfortunately on just one screen, and that screen basically doesn't allow me to have chat unpinned so that I can have I can look at it separately. So sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing anything. That's perfect. Okay, so how would you prepare your organization for an era of AI, right? I think you got to go through these 6 questions, or 5 questions rather. What are your goals for using AI? What is your pain point within your organization that can be addressed with AI? What are your current AI capabilities? And this is an important one, because it's not just about security, but it's also about training, and how do you make sure that there's no AI proliferation. We saw this a few years ago when SharePoint and OneDrive was launched, and there was this whole sprawl of SharePoint where people were just dumping data left, right, and center into SharePoint, without really thinking about what kind of effect does it have, without really thinking about the security implications of it. Because SharePoint, if you don't really properly put the policies around it, can potentially leave your data very easy for people to share externally within your organization. And I think it's similar to that. I think what we're seeing here is, without proper data strategies in place, your organization is kind of leaving themselves exposed to having your data show up on third-party AI, like your Perplexity or Cohere, or any other free and Gemini, right? Any other free engines that are out there. So how do you protect your data from leaving your organization, especially the sensitive data, right? And do you have the necessary infrastructure and resources to support this AI initiative? Because it is coming, right? It's not like we have an option to just come in and block it. In some way, shape, or form, it is coming, and we need to all think about what are those infrastructure needs, and what are those resources that you need to support your AI. So let's break that down a little bit in future slides here. Um, so foundational productivity, and how does it lead to Microsoft 365 Copilot? All right. So you gotta have a checklist. So becoming an AI powered business, it's basically 3 steps, right? You gotta empower your employees through AI powered tools like Microsoft Copilot, Buzz, or with commercial data protection, right? And then this, what's called formerly called Bing Chat Enterprise. And why is Microsoft Copilot, I would say, the AI of choice? Is it has many benefits. Obviously, it has access to powerful AI models that it uses, GPT 4.0 and DALI 3, actually DALI 4, I think now, for image and latest AI models. It's transparent and current. Copilot cites the data sources behind its answers. It provides up-to-date information with no knowledge cutoff, grounded in a Bing search index. And then business data, this is the most important one. Business data is protected. Copilot doesn't save prompts or answers, nor does it use them to train the AI model, right? We do have to differentiate between the free version of Copilot that's showing up with Windows 11, and Copilot for Microsoft 365. And that's the reason why these policies that Copilot for Microsoft 365 comes with, that integrate with your current policies, that's how you're going to protect your organization's data rather than using free AI. So it brings in the efficiencies from in your employees' day-to-day life, right? Summarizing long PDFs, drafting emails, generating images, learning new skills, getting answers for complex specific questions. That's those are all great examples of it. And one of the great example that I like to give in terms of how Copilot's made my life easy. About 6 months ago, we shipped a demo order about 20 devices of Surface Pro 9s and Surface Laptop 5s at that point, I believe. And this company was actually just testing them out. They were predominantly a Lenovo or Dell shop, and they were testing this out. And the IT manager of that company reached out to me and said, "Do you have a survey that I can send to people that are testing these devices, and so that I can collect feedback from them about what do they think of this device versus what they have been using?" And I was like, "I don't have a survey, but let me go to Copilot and ask it to create one, and ask it to basically rank between, highly likely to recommend or highly unlikely to recommend, strongly agree, strongly disagree, ask questions about the graphic card, ask questions about the screen, ask questions about the keyboard look and feel, etc." And literally within minutes, it just created a survey. I can't imagine if this was just maybe a year ago, I would have spent about an hour and a half even just Googling and thinking about what should I be including in the survey, because that was a very unique request, and we wanted to help out our client. And imagine the delight when within minutes I sent the client that survey in Word format, where not only were we giving him these great devices to demo, but now he had the survey that we enabled him with, so that when he went to his executives, he looked like a superstar, because he had the survey well planned already. And so that's one of the examples where it's made my life super efficient by using Copilot. Now, the difference between free Copilot and Copilot for Microsoft 365 is kind of demonstrated on the slide. It does have the foundational capabilities, both of them do. It does have the web grounding. We'll talk about it a little bit later. It does have commercial data protection, as you have, generally Entra ID, Azure AD Plan 1, it used to be called. But the Copilot for Microsoft 365 adheres to your enterprise grade data protection, your data labeling, your automatic data labeling. It taps into the graph grounding. It taps into Microsoft 365 apps. It has ability for Copilot Studio. The graph grounding is a pretty interesting concept where you can bring third-party tools into Copilot so that you can feed that data in. Like if you're using HubSpot or Salesforce or anything else, that can all be brought into Copilot, so that Copilot can utilize that data and give information based on the context and permissions that the user has to seek that information. So, on the last slide, we kind of called out the difference between the two AI models, right? What we need to do is we need to start laying the foundation for Copilot. So what Copilot really does is it takes the current web data and then kind of marries it with your company data, but it will make sure that your company data is still your company data and it's not going out on the web. So how would you do that with foundational security? So you need to standardize on Microsoft 365 suite, really, right? And why would you standardize on Microsoft 365 suite? Because the foundational pieces of Microsoft 365 suite is what Copilot uses to be super secure. So the Microsoft 365 suite is based on a zero trust foundation. With Entra ID, Microsoft Defender for Business. I would even, include Intune as part of Zero Trust. But I know on this slide it shows up as an endpoint management tool. Azure Information Protection. Windows 11 Business, and also productivity and collaboration. So it takes the Zero Trust Foundation, it takes your endpoint management, it takes your productivity and collaboration, marries it all with your data security policies like data labeling, and sensitivity labels and all that stuff, and then adheres to it to ensure that that data is not prompted to a wrong person, or the answers are prompted for the right person. So really, on as part of our checklist, the organization's sensitive data is protected, and you can ensure that users have access to the right data at the right time, and not someone else's data shows up on somebody else's answers here. So how would you prepare your environment for Copilot, really? So what would you really do is your data is logically isolated and protected within your Office 365 tenant. And if you haven't done so, you should start thinking about doing that, right? So by design, Copilot will start respecting user specific, group specific content content and information that it retrieves, and will only generate responses based on that user, based on the permissions that that user explicitly has. Microsoft 365 will allow you to classify teams and ensure the right people have access to the right conversation. It's important that capabilities such as sensitivity label, retention label are turned on. We restrict permissions to certain Microsoft apps. We set up retention labels and policies for emails. And then when you do all this together, that's when you start preventing oversharing of data or content oversharing with Microsoft 365. One thing that I would add on top of that is you also do need to think about a solution like a CASB solution, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, as an example, to start blocking third-party AI. Because although Copilot is respecting your organization's data protection policies, third-party AIs are not. So if you still have open, unfiltered access to third-party AI, and you don't have CASB solutions to block people from accessing them, then people can really copy and paste stuff and ask questions to Gemini, or copy and paste stuff and ask questions of ChatGPT or Perplexity, and then those prompts are used to train the overall model, and then there is a strong chance that your data will end up in somebody else's answers down the road. And so that's an important aspect that people need to think about. And it works alongside Word. So Copilot works alongside Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. So it's basically like an agent that just helps you do your job better. So the next few slides here are slides to talk about different use cases of Copilot. The first one with starting with Teams. So I'm going to share my computer audio, and I'm hoping that you guys hear the sound, and we can, because this video is with sound. So let me just bring up my chat here, and if you guys can please give me a thumbs up once the sound starts. I'll know that you guys can hear the sound. That'd be great. Thank you.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
Perfect. I'm going to take a question here from John. John's saying others may know this, but what's the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot? So, it's a great question. Copilot is actually built on ChatGPT. So, as you know, Microsoft owns, I believe, 49% of OpenAI. So, Copilot is built on ChatGPT. The difference is that the free version of ChatGPT is always one version behind. Copilot paid version is at par with the paid version of ChatGPT. On top of that, Copilot also takes your organizational context and then in its responses. One of my favorite things to do is when I want to be reminded in terms of what was the last meeting that I had with John, for example, right? I'll actually ask my Copilot and say, what was the last meeting that I had with John, and it will actually give me what was the meeting and what was discussed in the meeting, because it knows my outlook, it knows my teams, it knows if the meeting was recorded with Teams for Copilot, it will actually give me the context. I actually ask this question all the time: give me the last three things that I discussed with client X, and Copilot will actually lay it out for me and then give me linkage to those to those meetings or to those prompts, so that I can go review it in further detail. So really, the difference is Copilot meant more for your organization, because it has context based on your organizational data. Hopefully, if you have proper boundaries set up correctly, it will only bring in your organizational data that is relevant only to you. And we'll talk about that. There's a slide about that as well, and it will show how. And then ChatGPT, it just opens. So every time you prompt something, or you put in a prompt for ChatGPT, it's learning, and it would actually present that information to the next person that's asking that relevant information. Hopefully that answers your question. Awesome.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know why it played the same video again. Let me just move this forward a little bit. Uh, 1 second. Let's see. Oops. Uh, is it moving the slide now? Okay.
Imagine you have
Nope,
an appointment that
that's
can
not right. Okay. All right. That's what I wanted. Perfect. So, the slide kind of shows the intelligent recap. It has built-in and automated recap. It has, it will talk about, videos and speakers, and it will make it into chapters that's available after the meeting. You can actually have questions that you can ask within while the meeting is going on about pros and cons, and what was discussed, and notes. And our project managers actually do that all the time, where Copilot is turned on, and then meetings and action items and notes that used to be tedious. I mean, I used to be a project manager, and taking notes. I'm still guilty of that. It's not my favorite thing. And Copilot's made it so easy. It takes notes. It gives you the next steps. It gives you the action items, and it also tells you who these action items are assigned to. So it's made life so much easier as a result of having that AI do the work for you. Okay, so Copilot in Outlook.
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with a meeting you're planning to attend. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like summarize this meeting, or are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting.
Right. And that's been super helpful as well, because when you have calendars with competing priorities, this really helps out. Um, Peter has a question. If a company is a Google shop, could they leverage Copilot? I would say kinda. Yes, they can leverage Copilot if they do have a Microsoft subscription. The Copilot will help them with their Word, Excel, PowerPoint if they're using that. Um the the rich context that it provides when your data is sitting in SharePoint and OneDrive, it will be missing that context. Now, it's an interesting question because I don't know whether the graph will allow you to bring in data from Google Drive, but that's something that I want to take back and see if you can actually bring in data from Google Drive for users and then let Copilot learn that data. Uh, Definitely not Gmail. I know that for a fact. So because it's very different in terms of how Gmail works versus Office 365 works. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Okay, Copilot in Word.
When you've written a paragraph in shorthand, you can highlight it and click Rewrite. Copilot then offers several alternatives to choose from that are all written professionally. And it can translate wordy or complex paragraphs into digestible visualized tables. You can even use Copilot to add a column with extra data, which it can complete automatically. Copilot also makes you the expert on any document. Simply ask a question about the content, and Copilot will provide a concise response.
And that's Word. I've used that so many times. It's fantastic. All right. And this is actually really cool. The one in Excel. I don't understand Excel as well as some other people. I struggle with Excel other than equal sum and then selecting once and then the other. That's probably the extent of my Excel skills. I see people doing pivot tables and stuff like that, and I look at them like God because I don't understand how they do this. And I think Copilot is making me look like a star as a result. So this is pretty cool.
Copilot puts all the rich capabilities of Excel at your fingertips. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results for the monthly business review. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need. But you want to drill in. You ask Copilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. Copilot creates a new sheet, giving you a sandbox to play in and helping you get a better understanding of what's happening without modifying the data in the original sheet. You ask Copilot to visualize what contributed to the decline in sales growth this period. Copilot adds a little color to make the problem jump off the page. Now you want to dig a little deeper and ask a follow-up question with a what-if scenario. Copilot not only answers your question, it creates a simple model of the scenario, and even asks you if you want to learn more about what it did, with a step-by-step breakdown. Finally, you can ask it to create a graph of your projected model. Copilot has turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions.
And to me, this has been a lifesaver. I'm not sure if anyone else has used Copilot for Excel and what their feedback is, but this works really well. And I love using this one. And I think this was one of the features that actually completely sold me on Copilot, was the fact that it can do stuff with Excel. All right. Uh, Copilot Labs. I think this is an important one when you're deploying it in your organization. Copilot Lab will actually help teach your team members on how to make use of Copilot.
Introducing Copilot Lab, a new experience that will help people build new work habits for a new AI-powered era of productivity. Copilot Lab is a place to experiment, to learn the art and science of prompting, You'll learn how to turn a good prompt into a great one. Share your favorite prompts with coworkers, and get inspired as we all learn to work in a whole new way together.
There we go. All right. Uh, okay. So, I've talked a lot about data security, and this is, this one will provide a really great context in terms of how the data security piece is actually administered by Copilot.
Microsoft 365 Copilot works with the data security controls you have in place for file access, labeling, classification, and data loss prevention. Mario Rogers works for Violet Martinez, and both are on the same team at Contoso. Mario and Violet are also members in the same group working on Project Falcon. Now we'll start with Violet, who's been working with the procurement and contract management teams to sell their partner ReliCloud 1,500 Mark 8 quadcopters. And you can see the file is labeled highly confidential with restricted access, and it describes all the terms in the purchase agreement. Because Violet has access to the file, she's able to search for and find it in SharePoint and Microsoft365.com. And of course, Violet can also navigate to the file's location in the agreements folder of the project site to find the purchase agreement. So now let's look at Mario's experience. Even though he's on the same team and working on Project Falcon with Violet, to search for the Contoso purchase agreement, he won't find it. And there are a few purchasing documents that he does find without sensitive information, but not the one that Violet's working on. And if Mario knows the location of the purchase agreement and tries to navigate to it directly, it just appears as an empty folder to him. And when Mario launches Word on the web and creates a blank document, then prompts Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the Contoso purchase agreement as a reference file, because Microsoft 365 Copilot respects the file permissions of its user, Copilot also cannot access the purchase agreement. Now, if we switch back to Violet's screen, because she has permission to access the purchase agreement, she can use Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the file. And after a moment, you'll see it created a summary of the purchase agreement, and Violet decides to keep it. Then data security controls for Microsoft Purview discover sensitive information found in the Microsoft 365 Copilot generated content. The document is automatically labeled as highly confidential, and policies are enforced to restrict access to the document.
There you go. That's basically how Microsoft data labeling policies and security policies play a big role in ensuring that Copilot respects it. And that can only happen if you've actually gone through that exercise to ensure that you know where your data is, you know who has access to it, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so
Micro-
let's move this forward. Really, Microsoft's AI principles are really based on very simple philosophies. I mean, they have fairness, reliability, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability, where your data is your data. Your data is not used to train OpenAI foundational models without permissions. Your data is protected by most comprehensive enterprise and compliance security controls. That's at the base of it all. That's what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is. And that's really it. That's the end of our presentation. How can you get started? If you still have questions about your data, we do have a workload called cloud and identity protection that goes through your Office 365 and brings a lot of the settings that are kind of dispersed and they're not, easily found together to create that foundational baseline for your data so that Copilot can start using it, right? If you have any further questions about this, do feel free to, call me, message me, and ask questions over Teams or an email.